But often where there's love, there'll also be hate. And very sadly for Australia, non-property owners seem to find themselves in that category, especially when it comes to financial opportunities. Instead of winning the financial lotto like property owners have, if you don't own a home, your financial circumstances seems to get worse and worse. So non-property owners generally pay the highest percentage of tax because many of them are only getting income from their wages, which is taxed at a very high percentage. So they're unable to claim many tax concessions, which means a huge proportion of their income is taxed away. But then once they get their net income, they have to pay a huge chunk out of that to rent. And like we've seen how policies create ridiculous demand for housing, this causes house prices to rise, but it also means rents end up surging. Now, if rents rise faster than wages, like they definitely have over the last couple of years, it means that each year renters will pay a larger proportion of their net income towards that rent, which means they're left with less and less disposable income to be able to invest some of it or try and save for a home deposit. And you hear all these comments from people who have made unbelievable gains from property saying that renters should just work harder and sacrifice more like they had to and all this sort of stuff, but they don't realize that each year it's getting harder and harder to buy your first home. But also each year it's getting easier and easier for property owners to buy an additional home. That's the bloody irony of it all.
That's fucking ironic.
But even worse than non-homeowners going backwards financially, they now have to go through a prolonged housing crisis where they've got no security in having a place to live. And this is because we've got so much demand for housing that the rental vacancy levels are at all-time lows. And sadly, Australia's rental vacancy levels are some of the worst in the entire world. So many renters are only one rent rise or one eviction away from living on the streets. Consider the situation if you don't own a property and you reach retirement age. You might have to keep working until you pretty much die just so you can afford to pay your rent, or you might have to move in with 4 or 5 other retirees and live out your retirement in shared accommodation. So you've worked all your life, paid a crap load of taxes, of which billions are given to wealthy property owners so they can have tax concessions, and then as a reward for all your hard work, you get to live in poverty. Welcome to Australia, where if you don't own property, you're treated like absolute shit.